The microphone screeched for a second, then the sharp rip of paper cut through the cheers. My gift check fluttered to the floor like ashes. He didn't hesitate, didn't glance at me, just tore it in half, then in half again, and smiled like he'd won something. The clapping died faster than the candles behind me. Nobody moved. Nobody knew what to say. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Samuel. I'm 74 years old, and this is what really happened. The older I get, the more I realize birthdays don't always bring joy. Sometimes they just bring clarity. That morning, I stared at the cake they brought in. 3 tiers, pale blue icing, my name piped in gold. A ridiculous crown sat on top. King for a day, someone had said. But kings don't usually feel this hollow. The ballroom echoed with preparations. Forks clinked, heels tapped, laughter floated through warm air. And somewhere between the noise was the faintest vibration of something wrong. I'd seen my grandson Damon pacing earlier, wearing a suit too expensive for a college senior, holding something in his hand, not the card I'd later realize, but the stage mic's remote. Samuel, my daughter-in-law's voice broke my thoughts. She kissed my cheek too quick, then leaned in and whispered, "They're all here. Just make your speech short, okay?" She smiled before I could reply. Short for a man who'd lived through 4 wars, 2 in the world, 2 in my family. Short didn't quite capture it. I adjusted my tie, tried to ignore the heat rising in my chest, and watched as Damon climbed the stage ahead of schedule. He tapped the mic. Feedback screeched again, louder this time. He didn't flinch, just looked right at me. "Before Grandpa speaks," Damon said, "I just want to say," he held up an envelope, the one I'd given him minutes ago. "My grandfather gave me a very generous birthday gift. But I think we all know, gifts come with strings."
My stomach dropped.
"Love isn't a transaction," he said, voice growing louder. "Respect shouldn't be bought." He ripped the check in half. Then again. The pieces floated down like silent snow. Silence. But not peaceful silence. A stunned kind, sharp, heavy. I didn't speak. I just listened to the paper hit the ground. And to something else. The faint click of a phone recording, barely masked by a call from the crowd. Let's rewind. 6 months before that cursed party, Damon came to me for help. "I got into debt," he'd said, pacing my sunroom. "Crypto stuff. Dumb stuff. But I can fix it." He showed me numbers.
Accounts drained.
A girlfriend he couldn't afford. Trips he hadn't earned. "I need 50 grand. Just a loan." I remember stirring my tea slowly, watching the steam rise. "You don't need money," I told him. "You need discipline." He scoffed. "You think I'm like Dad? That's my son Eric, Damon's father, who defaulted on 2 mortgages. I'm not him," Damon snapped. "I'm not weak, I just miscalculated." But he was weak, just in a louder, flashier way. Still, I gave him 20,000, enough to breathe, not enough to fall deeper. I thought it was handled. I didn't know about the recordings.
Not yet.
A week before the party, my nurse, bless her soul, found Damon in my study. He claimed he was dropping off the new glasses case. But when she left, she heard a different sound. The start and stop of voice memos. She didn't tell me right away, but she did leave her phone inside the couch. It recorded everything. The rustle of my papers, the zip of my briefcase, and Damon's voice, smug, mocking. "He'll never see it coming," Damon said. "Guy's half senile. I'll tear it on stage. Make a show of it. He'll just smile and nod." Silence. Then his girlfriend's voice. "I still don't know her name." "And the will? Already made sure it's void. He signed a backup 2 years ago when he had pneumonia. Dad said it's still valid." She giggled. And then a sound I'll never forget. My safe opening. He knew the code. Sir. He'd watched me enough times. 3 nights before the party, I sat with the recording. Listening. Rewinding. Not crying. Not yelling. Just letting the truth breathe. He wasn't just reckless. He was planning to humiliate me, and not just me. That check I gave him, it wasn't even the real one. It was a decoy printed from my old inkjet. The real gift, already signed over, to someone who actually earned it. But Damon didn't know, and he wouldn't find out, not until the microphone passed back to me. After he tore the check, the silence hung. I stood slowly. Applause didn't resume.
No one clapped.
No one smiled. Just a sea of confused, uncomfortable faces. Damon smirked. I guess that's my cue to leave, he said. But I raised a hand. No, I said. My turn. I walked to the stage, bent down, picked up the torn check, held it between my fingers. Then, without looking at him, I said, "So I'm glad you tore it." My voice was steady, louder than I expected, because that wasn't your gift. Damon laughed, nervous. People stirred in their seats. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a flash drive, held it up to the crowd. This, I said, is the real gift. Eyes widened, heart skipped. I gave this to my lawyer this morning. It contains a few things, one of which, Damon, includes a recording of you planning this little performance. Gasps, the sound of a chair scraping, and for the first time that evening, Damon didn't smile. I placed the flash drive gently on the podium, then stepped back. And now, I said, we'll let the family listen together. After dinner, I'd never liked drama, but sometimes silence cuts deeper. The scent hit me before the doors even opened. Sweet, painfully so. Synthetic flowers and cheap perfume, melting into the heat of too many bodies in too small a space. Someone had sprayed the entryway, probably his girlfriend, the one with the gold heels and no inside voice. I stood in the hallway, adjusting the cuff of my jacket, and let the smell settle. That same perfume had lingered in my study the week before. She hadn't even tried to hide her involvement. Now they sat side by side, front row, heads high. Damon and his darling co-conspirator. They watched them whisper, watched her hand on his thigh, watched him laugh like nothing had happened. But the room hadn't forgotten, not the staff, still clearing plates with extra care. Not the cousins who avoided his gaze. Not the old veterans from my regiment who sat stiff, arms crossed, lips sealed. The aftermath had begun, and it reeked of nervous perfume and quiet guilt. The day after the party, I called my lawyer. I want the trust certified and read aloud, publicly. He hesitated. Are you sure, Mr. Berger? That'll escalate things. Good. I paused. And get in touch with Rachel. Your niece? Yes, she's ready. Rachel had been managing my business properties for 6 years. Quietly, efficiently, while Damon posted about generational wealth and wore Gucci belts he didn't pay for. Rachel was negotiating leases and restoring balance sheets. The same week, Damon bragged online about turning down a $100K check from my manipulative grandpa. Rachel was closing a deal that doubled our farmland revenue. And unlike Damon, she had never once asked me for money. So 2 days later, I invited them both. A private lunch, no stage, no microphone, just a table, 3 chairs, and 1 sealed folder. He arrived late, sunglasses on indoors, reeking of that same perfume. I didn't speak first. Let the clatter of his metal watch fill the silence. You're not going to sue me, are you? He said, joking. Freedom of expression, Grandpa. I blinked slowly. You humiliated yourself, I said. I simply gave you the space. Rachel arrived moments later, calm, no makeup, a folder in hand. Hi, Uncle Sam, she said. Then nodded to Damon. Cousin. He didn't nod back. I motioned for them to sit. Waited until the drinks arrived. Then opened the folder. Inside, a notarized amendment to the living trust. A county-recorded deed transfer for 3 properties. And a certification of trust, naming Rachel's successor trustee and beneficiary of all assets, excluding one. The one Damon thought he'd inherit. This isn't legal, he muttered. Rachel smiled faintly. It was filed 6 months ago. But I'm your grandson, he snapped. I'm your blood. I reached for my water, sipped, then looked him straight in the eyes. And blood, I said, means nothing when it's poisoned. Word spread quickly. My lawyer, as requested, had shared the recording. The full one, unedited. People heard Damon mock my memory. Call me expired. Brag about rehearsing his speech in front of a mirror. Gonna rip it like a Netflix drama, he said. He thought he was the main character. But the community didn't cheer, didn't laugh. My neighbor, a woman I'd known since '78, called to say she wept. She was in your study, Sam, she whispered. They planned it there, like thieves. And slowly, the invitations dried up. No more gala invites. No podcast features. The venture fund he begged to join ghosted him. One by one, the doors closed. 3 weeks passed. Then came the knock. Not loud, not demanding, Just a soft, free tap rhythm I recognized. Damon stood outside. Alone. No cologne. No girlfriend. Can we talk, he asked. I stepped aside. Didn't smile. He sat on the edge of the couch like a boy again. Hands in his lap. Eyes darting. I'm messed up, he said. I know. I thought you'd always forgive me. That's what you do. You always forgive. I sat across from him. Forgiveness isn't unconditional. It's earned. Silence. I lost everything, he said, voice cracking. No, I said. You lost access. You still have your name. You still have your youth. You still have a chance. He blinked. You're saying there's hope? I leaned forward. Not with me, but maybe with yourself. He stood. Grandpa. Samuel, I corrected, then looked away. Rachel visited the next day. She brought banana bread and a quiet kind of pride. He came to my office, she said. Didn't ask for money, just asked how I did it. I nodded. I told him, she said, that the first thing I learned was how to lose quietly. She handed me a thank you card. I didn't do it for thanks, I said. She smiled. I know, that's why it mattered. There's a line I keep returning to, from a book my late wife used to quote. Legacy is not what we leave behind, but who we leave it with. Doman tore a piece of paper, but Rachel built something unshakable. One day, maybe he'll learn, but not because I gave him anything. Because I took it away. The ballroom had changed. It wasn't the furniture or the paint. It was the light. Sharper now, less forgiving. Every chandelier crystal seemed to gleam with judgment. And the guests, they noticed. Even if they didn't say it aloud, they greeted me with careful smiles. Happy belated, they'd say, their voices cautious. A few hugged me longer than usual, as if compensating for what Damon did. But Damon wasn't here. This event wasn't for him. It was for Rachel. And under the spotlight that once revealed my humiliation, she would be announced as the new face of the Berger Foundation. I stood backstage, adjusting my tie, not for vanity, just for stillness. The scent of lilies filled the air, real ones this time. Rachel's choice, no synthetic sweetness, no knockoff fragrance. The real thing, like her. The stage crew gave the signal, 3 minutes until the reveal. Behind me, my lawyer checked the briefcase. Are you sure you want to do this publicly? He asked again. Yes, I said. This isn't about punishment anymore, I added. It's about clarity. He nodded, snapped the case shut. Outside, the orchestra began its low intro. When I stepped onto the stage, the lights hit me square in the eyes. But I didn't blink. Not this time. A few camera flashes sparked in the crowd. Voices hushed. The last time I stood on this stage, I was holding torn pieces of a check. Now, I held a leather folder. I leaned into the microphone. Good evening. A soft echo of my voice bounced back. 2 months ago, this room witnessed a moment I'll never forget. Not because of what was said, but because of what was revealed. Eyes fixed on me, no rustling, no phones, no whispering, just waiting. I'd like to read something tonight, I said, lifting the first page from the folder. It's not a check. It's not a speech. It's a certification. I let that settle. Then read, by authority of the state of Illinois, this document certifies the amended trust of Samuel Berger, naming Rachel Lynn Berger as the sole successor trustee and designated inheritor of all assets, holdings, and philanthropic controls. I paused, raised my eyes to the crowd. Effective immediately. Murmurs, some surprised, some relieved. I could see Rachel standing near the back. No makeup again, hands clasped in front of her. Steady. I continued. Some of you may wonder why now. I folded the page, set it aside, because legacies are not born from blood, but from belief. I stepped away from the mic, nodded to the side crew. The lights dimmed, and on the projection screen behind me, a video began. It wasn't the recording. Not that one. It was another, from the foundation's security footage. Unedited. Rachel, late at night, reviewing grant applications, annotating margins, circling footnotes, calling applicants directly to ask about details. No spotlight, no praise, just quiet, consistent work. The screen faded. Then another clip. A group of local teens, recipients of a scholarship we started 10 years ago, talking about Rachel. She actually listened, one said. She asked what we needed, not just what we earned. Another added she sent me a care package before finals. She remembered I was diabetic. More than money, memory, presence. When the lights came back up, some audience members were wiping their eyes. I returned to the mic. This is what legacy looks like. No applause yet, just breath. Then I looked straight ahead, at the second balcony. Damon sat there, alone. No girlfriend, no laughter, just him. I didn't flinch. I once gave a boy a check, I said. A few heads turned toward the balcony. He tore it. Pause. I gave a woman a mission. And finally, applause. Slow, building, then full. After the event, I waited in the side hallway. Rachel came around the corner, holding the folder now. Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. Instead, she reached into her purse and handed me something. A cassette tape. What's this? I digitized it, she said, but I thought you might want the original. I turned it over. My wife's handwriting. Sam, last year's anniversary. I closed my hand around it. I didn't know you kept these. She smiled. You taught me what matters. Later that night, alone in my den, I sat with the old tape deck humming. Her voice crackled through the speakers. Soft. Warm. I hope you're sitting down, Sam, she joked on the tape. Because I just burned dinner again. I laughed. Aloud. For the first time in weeks. Then her tone shifted. But seriously, if you're listening to this, I want you to promise something. Pause. If Damon loses his way, help him find the mirror, not the money. The mirror. The next morning I mailed Damon a package. Inside, a mirror, a printed transcript of the inheritance ceremony, and a handwritten note. What you destroy reveals what you fear. What you build, that's what defines you. No check, no threats, just reflection. The mirror stayed with him longer than any check ever could. I know because a month later, I got a text. Just one photo. No caption. It was the mirror. Cracked. Yes, but still whole. Hung on a pale apartment wall behind a folding chair, a backpack and nothing else. A life stripped bare. The kind that forces a person to look, really look at what's left. Damon didn't show up for the winter gala. Didn't call on Christmas. Didn't send a card on New Year's. But on the second Tuesday in January, Rachel knocked on my door with an odd look in her eye. He's volunteering. I raised a brow. Who? She smiled. You didn't tell you? I shook my head. He's been working at the youth center in Southbridge, twice a week. No photos, no LinkedIn, just shows up. I said nothing. She added, he's quiet, doesn't talk much, but he listens. I stared at my fireplace for a while after she left. The embers were low, but still burning. 3 weeks later, Damon called. His voice didn't crack this time.
It held.
I wanted to say thank you, he said. Not for the money, for the silence. He paused. He could have destroyed me. You didn't. I answered after a breath. You were never the target, Damon. You were just in the way. Another pause. Will I ever get back in the will? He asked, half joking. No, I said, but you might make it into the story. He chuckled. That's fair. Then came the day of the toast. My final birthday event. The big one. The real one. No cake this time. Just family. Small gathering. Fire pit in the yard. Rachel sat beside me passing mugs of cocoa. Damon stood off to the side helping kids light sparklers. Handwang. No speeches. No microphones. Until I stood. Everyone, I said softly. Heads turned. Conversations hushed. I don't have much left to give in speeches. But I do have one last letter. I pulled a folded paper from my coat. It's not a will. It's not a check. It's something older than that. I looked at Rachel. She nodded. This is a letter your grandmother wrote. To me, on my 60th birthday. I began to read, Dear Sam, when we grow old, we grow quiet. But sometimes silence holds more than any speech ever could. If you're reading this, you've outlived more than time. You've outlived mistakes, maybe even your own. So when the day comes that people forget who you were, make sure they remember what you stood for. Legacy isn't passed down. It's earned by those willing to carry the burden with grace. I looked up. Rachel had tears on her cheeks. Damon was still rigid, but not cold, just awake. I folded the letter, tucked it back inside my coat, then lifted my mug. To the ones who build, and to the ones who learn how. Everyone raised their cups, but Damon, he stepped forward. To clink his mug to mine. I'm both, he said softly. I know, I replied. Months passed, and one night I found an envelope on my porch. Handwritten. Inside was a photo. Damon, standing beside 3 kids at the center, wearing the same suit he once wore to tear up a check. Below it, a note. I stitched it. Patched the tear, thought you should see. I flipped the photo over. He'd used the torn check pieces as backing. Taped, mended, flattened. His past, holding up his present. The irony was quiet, but not lost.
I didn't call him.
Didn't need to. Some wounds heal when no one's watching, and some men grow only when the lights finally go out. Last month, I amended my estate. Rachel still holds the title, still runs the foundation, but there's a note now. I signed, tucked inside the vault. If Damon finishes 3 years at the youth center, no breaks, no scandals, he'll be offered a trustee position. Not an inheritance, a duty, and if he declines, so be it. But if he accepts, he'll walk back in, not as a grandson seeking approval, but as a man ready to carry weight. I once thought my voice would fade, that my story would end in silence. But silence is just a pause. The truth always speaks again. And this was mine. I woke up to birdsong that morning. Not the kind that fills a forest, just one insistent little chirp outside my window. Steady, unbothered. I stayed in bed longer than usual. Let the sun warm the wrinkles in the bedsheet, the curve of my spine. Then I rose, not because I had to, but because I still could. Rachel was in the kitchen. She wore my old flannel, had flour on her hands, and was humming something from an old Nat King Cole record. Morning, I said. Morning, Uncle Sam. She slid a plate of warm biscuits onto the counter. Her phone buzzed. Once. She glanced at it, smiled faintly, then slid it face down. I poured my coffee. Was that Damon? She looked up, surprised, then nodded. He's submitting his application this week. I raised a brow. For the board? No. She smiled. For night classes. Business administration. Finally. I sipped. Said nothing. But my chest swelled in that quiet way age teaches you to appreciate. Not pride. Too sharp. Just continuity. Later that week, I visited the center, not to inspect, not to monitor, just to sit. Damon was there, of course. Hair shorter now, posture tighter. He didn't see me at first. He was crouched beside a boy struggling with a puzzle. One hand steadying the kid's arm, the other pointing, not doing, just guiding. That's how I knew. He'd changed. He saw me as I stood up to leave, jogged over, sweat on his collar, a smear of marker on his wrist. Grandpa. Samuel, I corrected. He grinned, nodded. Samuel, he repeated. We stood there. No hug. No ceremony. Then he asked, will you come next Thursday? For what? I'm hosting the center's open mic night. Thought maybe you'd say something. I laughed. You sure? Last time I held a mic, someone cried. He chuckled. Exactly. That's what we're going for. Thursday came fast. The room was smaller than the ballroom, but warmer. Folding chairs, plastic tablecloths, Christmas lights strung across the windows. Even though it was March, kids read poetry. One girl did a magic trick that failed twice and got a standing ovation anyway. Then Damon stepped up. He tapped the mic. No screech this time, just a soft hum. I'd like to invite someone up, he said. A man I once misunderstood and who still came anyway. He looked at me. Samuel, I took a breath, stood, walked forward slowly. No speech in hand, no folder, just presence. I adjusted the mic. Not much left in me to impress a room, I said, but I do know how to tell a story. Laughter. Then quiet. When I was your age, I began. I thought legacy meant property, titles, wills, checks. I scanned the room, eyes locked in. But what I've learned is that legacy is a room like this, filled with faces who never needed to love you, but chose to. A pause. And the best way to carry a legacy? I looked at Damon. Don't tear it. I stepped back. Silence. Then, applause. Not polite. Real. It rattled the folding chairs. I didn't stay long after. Damon walked me to my car. As I opened the door, he said, I wish she'd seen this. My wife. I nodded. She did, I said. He frowned. Before she passed. No, I said. After. He didn't ask how, just nodded. Some things don't need explaining. Last week I added one more thing to the trust. Not money. Not land. A letter. To be opened only if Damon becomes trustee. It reads, if you're holding this, then you learn to hold something bigger than yourself. Remember, you didn't inherit this. You earned the chance to protect it. Don't guard it for profit. Guard it for people. And when you choose the next to carry it, don't look at their blood. Look at their hands. This is the last story I'll tell with a microphone. From here on, it's letters, gardens, moments too small to post online. But if someone ever asks who I was, just say this. I was a man who lost his grandson and waited long enough to meet the man he became. That morning, I found the envelope waiting on my porch. No address, no stamp, just my name and Damon's handwriting. I knew before opening it, something had ended. Or maybe finally begun. Inside were two things, a photograph and a letter. The photo, Damon standing outside a community building. The sign above him read, Burger Center for Leadership and Repair. Not legacy, not excellence, not power. Repair. That word told me everything. The letter was handwritten, clean, careful. Samuel, I won't call you Grandpa this time. That title is earned, not given. Just like everything else in my life now. I signed the trustee forms today, not because I wanted access, but because I finally understood the weight. I didn't become a man the day I tore the check. I became one the moment I realized no amount of money could ever replace your silence. You let me fall, and you let me get back up without telling the world I had. That's the kind of leadership I want to teach now. I'll carry it, Samuel. I'll carry it right. I folded the letter slowly, hands steady, no tears. Just a quiet sense of fullness, like walking through an empty house you built, knowing someone finally turned the lights back on. The final amendment was simple. One line added to the trust. Should the trustee prove worthy, the title may pass not by right, but by reason. And beneath that line, Rachel's initials, then Damon's, then mine. Not notarized, not stamped, just signed on a kitchen table between 3 mugs of lukewarm coffee. And a single candle burning low. We hosted one last dinner. No gala, no stage, just us. Rachel made pot roast. Damon brought pie. I stayed seated the whole night. Didn't say much. Didn't have to. The sound of their laughter, the clink of forks on plates, the occasional pass the rolls, that was my legacy. That was the toast. When the guests left, Damon lingered. I was thinking, he said, helping me gather the plates, about what you said, about looking at hands instead of blood. He glanced at mine, old, veined, slow. Yours built all this, he said. No, I replied. They held the tools. You decide what to build next. He nodded, swallowing something heavy. Then, with no ceremony, he reached out and pressed something into my hand. A new check. Made out to the Burger Youth Fund. Signed by Damon Burger. Amount. I looked up. It's symbolic, he said. But I wanted to start where I ended. I smiled. And for the first time in a long while, I held that dollar like it was a crown. The day I moved out of the estate, I left behind only 3 things. A pen, the stitched check, and a note taped inside the safe. It read, the greatest thing I ever gave away was control. The greatest thing I ever received was respect. If you're reading this, build quietly, love loudly, and leave no debts behind but kindness. So this is where the story ends. Not with a courtroom, not with revenge, not with a mic drop, but with 2 hands, passing something broken, and watching it get rebuilt, stronger than before. And me, I'm not on stage anymore. I'm in the back row now, watching, smiling, and finally, resting.